everybody? It's Joe coming at you with a brand new video, and today I want to bring to y'all a video I've been waiting to bring out for quite a while now. I was trying to get this video out a week ago but couldn't, but that is my Mikanko deck profile. So I was kind of like in between decks while waiting for transaction rollback to come out, and I'm probably still going to be in between decks until I save up enough money to buy transaction rollbacks. But Mikanko was definitely the one that really stuck with me the most, because this deck is actually really strong, despite being incredibly simple. So I'm not talking about, of course, the Isolde, Acid Golem, etc. lock. I'm talking about just pure, raw, blind second Mikanko. It is shockingly powerful to just go second and either OTK your opponent or break apart their board and then just sit on stuff that they can't out, despite it being like the most simple of protection. And so this deck actually led me to quite a few tops and a win at my locals. It was incredibly fun, and it's basically the deck I've been playing the most out of all of the other ones, though I probably won't play it as much in this format and compared to last, because Labyrinth is going to be an absolute menace and Karma Cannon hurts really bad. But without further ado, I don't want to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get right into my Mikanko deck profile for the January 2024 format. Starting off, of course, with the Mikanko monsters, we have 3 copies of Mikanko of the Ohime, as well as 2 copies of Huli the Jewel Mikanko, 2 copies of Hare the Sword Mikanko, and 1 copy of Nini the Jewel Mikanko. And let me adjust these for a sec. So this is the ratio I decided to go with. I was at one point playing like 3-1-1 none, or because, no, 3-2-1 none, sorry, because that's like what my friend had given me when I was borrowing most of the cards. I'm still borrowing a good chunk of these, but I decided that I wanted to play a much heavier Mikanko package, because I really wanted to heighten my chances of opening one without having to use a card like Ohime to search for one. So of course Ohime is your searcher and your big ritual monster, big in quotes, that you're going to be specialing off of your ceremony most of the time, punching into something, dealing a bunch of damage. During the end phase it comes back to the hand, though we are playing the 1 Kagura in case you want a hard maker. Huli is by far like the best card in the whole deck. Her targeting protection combined with the battle protection and then the destruction protection, that the equip spells provide just makes her basically unkillable by most decks. It's especially strong against decks like Unchained and stuff, for example, and it's really the big thing that makes your deck really only affected by cards like Karma Cannon, Book of Eclipse, anything that mass non-target removes. Hare is basically the second best one because she searches for another equip spell if she's equipped, meaning you can grab cards like Arabesque to get another from deck, usually Huli. You can go for things like Fire Dance, a special one back from grave, and then get a big body on your opponent's field, yada yada, stuff like that. And then Nini. Not everyone plays Nini, sometimes you side it if you do even play her, but I like to main deck her. She is a decent thing to end off on if you're either forced to go first, or in case your opponent doesn't die and you want to like sit on something. Huli and a trap card sometimes can be enough, but having that extra like snatch steal effect on Nini is also pretty strong. We are, of course, also playing 3 copies of Diviner of the Herald. Still so expensive for, like, no reason, by the way. Konami, can you reprint this at some point? But yeah, this is basically, like, the thing that's searching Ohime most of the time. Normal summon, send Arclight, add Ohime, get all your plays going. She can also be level 6 because of this, so that you can go into some Synchro plays, Xyz plays, and also she does make herself 6 for the Kagura as well. But if you already open Ohime and you're blind seconding anyway, you can also send things like Natus to get some board breaking. She isn't the only normal summon in the deck, though, because we are on 3 copies of Gen the Diamond Tiger and 1 copy of Ken the Warrior Dragon. So these cards are really good for quite a few reasons in this deck. So the first part is, of course, turning on things like Talents, or Thrust if you own it, but I only have Talents because I'm poor. Meaning you can get in like a draw 2, you can get a steal, you can get a hand rip. Speaking of hand rip, again is a hand rip as well, which is pretty damn cool. Ken making you draw 2, discard 1 is also really solid, can help you grab things like your Ohime and then put things like Mikanko's or the Mayawashi Dorian Grave. They are level 3s to go along with your Mikanko's to go for rank 3 plays, but one of the biggest things is definitely just giving your opponent a monster. One of the funniest things people like to do when playing against Mikanko is that they will, like if you force them to go first, right? They will literally just like set some back row and pass, or just straight up pass period, because they're like, oh, I mean, they can't kill me in case I just have no monsters. Well, if you summon a Ken or a Gen to their field, they're gonna have a pretty decent body, and if you kaiju that on top of it, you can just straight up kill them and there's nothing they can do about it because they didn't set up any defenses. It is a bit annoying that they do conflict with normal summoning Diviner. Usually you will just be going for the Diviner in case you don't already have Ohime in hand at least, but it does kind of get annoying in case you do draw them, but that's the perks of playing such a high card count. We are at 48 cards here. Speaking of kaijus, I'm literally just playing one kaiju, and that is 3 copies of Thunder King, the Lightning Strike kaiju. It's the biggest kaiju, it's a light so you can make line on things, it's not like a machine so you're not giving your opponent something super solid depending on their deck. Most decks can't make use of like a Thunder as well. And also it's a level 9 as opposed to a level 10, so it's like the subtle things there that like it doesn't feel like they matter but they might come up, and so Thunder King just felt like the best one to add. That's it for the regular monsters. On to the hand traps. We have 3 copies of Nibiru, 3 copies of Ash, and of course 3 copies of Imperm. So pretty standard lineup here. I wanted to play a good amount of hand traps because I was blinding second. I want to stop my opponent as much as I possibly can, even though I am also playing board breakers, of course. Nibiru is, of course, Nibiru. It's not only going to wipe an entire board, but it's also going to put a very large token on your opponent's field that you can crash into with sometimes even just 1 Mikanko per game. And then Ash and Imperm are, of course, Ash and Imperm. Moving on to the back row, starting, of course, with the Mikanko back row. 2 copies of the Great Mikanko Ceremony. I've seen some people play 1. I don't really think that's correct. This card can help you immensely in the grind, both with the special summon from hand effect, as well as the Foolish effect, being able to dump things like your Reflection Rondo to equip off of your Ohime, but of course, most importantly, dumping things like your Mayawashi Dori. Really, really big. Really love this card overall. And for the equips, we are on 3 copies of Water Arabesque, 1 copy of Fire Dance, 1 copy of Mayawashi Dori, and 1 copy of Reflection Rondo. To wrap up the Mikanko equips, for the final Mikanko spell, we are playing the 1 Mikanko Kagura. I think this is a perfectly fine lineup. 3 Arabesque, of course, because it is the most insane card in the entire deck. You get to remove a monster and summon your monster and trigger its equip effect. So powerful. Fire Dance is the only one I consider changing the ratio, maybe adding a second one. Really just dependent on like the format though. Like if there's a lot of stuff that'll like want to get rid of your things in grave, and so your Fire Dance fizzles and everything like that. Mayawashi Dori is one of the most powerful cards in the deck as well. Being able to just constantly reborn your Mikankos, trigger their equip effects, and get free bounces is really nice. Reflection Rondo, of course, is a Snatch Steal, though it is a little bit less relevant now that we have actual Snatch Steal to throw in here. Let me just show that right now. The main reason to go for Reflection Rondo over something like Snatch Steal would, of course, to give it the targeting protection, so your opponent couldn't go like Cosmic Cyclone to banish the Snatch Steal to get their monster back. And then, like I said, we are playing the 1 Kagura here. This is completely optional. I just felt like adding it because I feel like it'd be a very good time card in case you didn't have like straight up access to your Mikanko punches, or in case you wanted to go for that like little bit of extra game because sometimes you're just barely off in terms of damage. For the Mikanko trap cards, we are playing 1 each of Rivalry and Spirit Walk. Both of these cards are very good. I think Rivalry is a little bit less good compared to Spirit Walk, even though we do have Snatch Steal as a target for Rivalry now. But Rivalry is basically just going to be equipping Reflection Rondo or Snatch Steal 99.9% of the time, and the Graveyard effect doesn't always really come up. I think I've only ever used it like once, and even then I still like ended up losing next turn anyway. And then Spirit Walk though, Spirit Walk is really good. So the problem with Rivalry stealing something as opposed to Spirit Walk equipping something is that they can go battle phase, punch their own monster, and then get it back. But Spirit Walk equips it, meaning it's a lot more difficult for them to get it back and to get the value out of that monster. Plus, the Banish effect to summon a banished Mikanko or one in my hand has saved me more often than I can actually even remember. Like, literally just summoning back a banished Huli that I summoned back off my Mayawashi Dori to just protect myself or have follow-up. So nice. And then for the miscellaneous spell cards, we have 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. This is going to be adding your Ohime 99% of the time, and sometimes, I mean, you can be adding your Kagura back from grave in case you want that extra discard fodder. I'm also on 3 copies of Ultimate Slayer in the main deck. This card is insane. You send from your extra deck for cost to get value out of that extra deck monster and spin back an extra deck monster. So you're basically getting usually 2 pieces of removal, or you're getting like a piece of removal and a draw. And keep in mind, this card isn't a hard once per turn either. So basically, it's good in case in case you open multiples. It's good in case they negate it. It's basically just a really good card overall. We're also playing 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. Again, I'm poor, I don't have Thrust, but even then, I think that just Talents on its own is perfectly fine. Really, really good card. And of course, we are playing 1 Called by the Grave. You don't have to play Called by, I just like having that Called by to make sure my Arabesque and things like that go through, or my Ohime affect a search. That is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. We have our Diviner targets, of course, being 2 copies of Arclight and 1 copy of Natus. Very strong cards. You can also send these off of your Ultimate Slayer. This is going to be your fusion target for Slayer, of course, but Arclight you can also send and then get like a search on top of getting a Synchro monster off the field, depending on what they end on, if it's like a Baron Pass or something. Speaking of Slayer targets, we have a lot of them. Starting with our Tri-Brigade Arms Bucephalus II and a Garura Wings of Resonant Life. Both of these go together because you send the Bucephalus to send a Link monster, or shuffle a Link monster I should say, and then send the Garura off the effect of Bucephalus. This is really good for outing cards like SP Little Knight, and then getting a draw so that you can replace the Slayer in your hand, and sometimes I've even drawn Slayer off of it, which is really funny. We have for our Xyz target, Myriologic Aggregator. This is going to imperm any face-up, I think it's card on the field, or is it monster? Yeah, face-up card on the field. You're going to imperm that if it's sent to the graveyard. So you're getting a Xyz monster shuffle back and also a card negation. You have the Golden Cloud Beast Maulong for your Synchro target. So if you're not sending Arclight, you're sending Maulong. Maulong's going to bounce a face-up card on send, so that you're getting 2 pieces of removal. Onto the Link monsters, we are playing 1 each of Hida the Fire Charmer Ablaze, Lina the Light Charmer Lustrous, and 1 copy of SP Little Knight. And before anyone says anything, no, there is no really good alternative to SP Little Knight. The closest thing you're going to get is Nightmare Unicorn, which is only going to get 1 piece of removal that requires a discard after summoning it off of a Charmer. So it's not going to be as good. I'm sorry, but Little Knight is like one of the best cards in the game right now. It is very, very hard to find a replacement for. But of course, the Link 2s here, both of these can be made using things like your Diviner, Gen, Ken, your like Hare, Ash, whatever, to summon a monster from the opponent's grave to go into SP to get that banish on summon. So that's really the only purpose these guys serve. Yeah, Little Knight, just such a powerful card, especially in a control deck like this. You can set this up on top of your Mikanko protections and make it really hard for your opponent to out your board. Moving on to the Xyz monsters, we have 1 copy of number 49 Fortune Tune. This is how we're making our Zeus really most of the time. 1 copy of Dompier Vampire Sheridan. This you can make with your level 6 Diviner and any monster you steal from your opponent, or even any 2 monsters you steal from your opponent, because you can treat them as level 6 for his Xyz summon and get a piece of removal and even maybe a special summon there. We also have 1 copy of Superstar Slayer Typhon Sky Crisis, that's his name, and 1 copy of Divine Arsenal Zeus. Both of these cards just so good for going second because we are playing a blind second deck. A lot of hands could end up being bricky, or you could get like your Diviner negated, so why not just go into Typhon, get a piece of removal, and sit on that with some back row to prevent your opponent from killing you. And then Zeus, I don't think I've actually made him more than once, if I made him at all, but he is always there as an option. And then I might as well talk about it now. It is the last card in the extra deck. It is a Synchro, that being a Power Tool Braver Dragon. So I've made this card once. I don't think it really mattered. I was kind of just messing around. But Braver Dragon is a pretty damn strong card. I mean, it's an imperm by sending equip spells equipped to it, and you can equip 3 things from your deck to it on summon. Of course, you can't equip things like Snatch Steal, unfortunately, but you can still equip things like Arabesque to get it for later, Mayawasha Dori, of course, being the big one, and even other things such as your Fire Dance. It's not the strongest card, but it is still very solid for the extra deck. And that is going to do it for my Mikanko deck profile for the January 2024 format post Forbidden and Limited list. I think this is a super slept on, super powerful deck, no matter what kind of variant you want to go for or how many cards you decide to play in your list compared to mine. Still so weird playing a deck that's like over 45 cards, it's just always a lot for me. Again, I probably wouldn't recommend it unless like there's not very many lab players at your locals going into the next format. because Lab is just an absolute nightmare for this deck. Being able to search and reuse Karma Cannon will just completely end you. But other than that, let me know what you thought about this video down in the comments below, because that's going to do it for the video. If you liked it, please sure to leave a like, as I'll split this video and the channel into your remitted. And if this content knows where I like it, like the rest of my deck profiles, they're probably going to start subscribing, because we're on our way to 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. Not to mention, it supports the channel more than anything else, and it's absolutely free. Also, if you want to support me directly while getting some awesome TGG merchandise in the process, check out Tapio cards in the link down below. Use code AURORA5 for 5% free purchase at checkout, and support me financially. Once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.